And speaking of sex, and a young woman was telling me, so she had cervical cancer, and then sex was really painful, but she's trying to educate other young women how to get their sex drive back, and she goes into sex shops, which are really, really great apparently, but she said you have to know which sex toys to get, because if your skin is fragile, if you haven't got estrogen nourishing your vagina and your labia and everything like that, your genitals, and you use the wrong sex toy, it can be really painful, or on your clitoris and things. So
you're listening to On the Moans, where we have conversations about hormones, midlife, and the moments that make us wonder, is it just me? I'm Kate. I'm a 48-year-old pharmacist and newly minted perimenopausal oversharer. This is where we talk openly about the changes we aren't prepared for, so we never have to feel alone in them again. I acknowledge the Camaragal people of the Eora Nation, the traditional custodians of the land which I am recording today. I pay my respects to elders past and present, and I extend that respect to all Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander peoples listening. Always was, always will be Aboriginal land. Hello friends, welcome back. This is part 2 of my conversation with the amazing Jean Kittson. If you haven't listened to part 1, go back and start there. We cover her career, comedy, and some brilliant life reflections. In this half of the conversation, we shift gears into midlife, work, hormones, relationship, sex, and everything that doesn't get talked about nearly enough. Oh, and there's a surprise visit from the little fat dog, Horace.
Certainly I don't think anybody's, they've got that that quote or whatever, and it says nobody's dying and thinks, gosh, I should have spent more time at work.
Yeah, of course. Of course.
But I just feel like when you're doing it, you've got to do it. You just you don't. Okay, that's not what I mean. I don't mean you have to do it. I mean when you are grinding through it.
Yeah, your mortgages and everything you have to pay, and school fees and medical bills, and you have to cover all that.
Yeah.
You have to take all that into consideration. You're constantly counting the dollars, and you're constantly wondering whether, this bloody mortgage was worth it. But you're going to have a mortgage wherever you go now, and it's just this terrible pressure, and I see it, and anxiety and conflict between partners, and I see, okay, no more coffees out, because that's going to cost us $7 or $8 a coffee now, and especially if you have almond milk or something.
That's right.
So forget that. 5 of those a week is going to be $35, and you multiply. I see all this, micro managing of finance having to happen because every penny counts. And so it's a lot of pressure. So I would never, like my youngest daughter goes, judgy, mum. If I say anything about anything that's, judgy, I judge, okay. But I also, everyone has to come to their own arrangements and do it the best way they can. Mm-hmm. But we can get caught in a cycle. What I see with the younger generation, like the 20s, is they're getting a really good balance in their lives. They're really making sure they maintain friendships, because often you let friendships go and everything. You haven't got time.
No, you just can't muster the energy after a huge week at work. Yeah, I wonder about, I don't know if my parents worried about me in this way. Maybe they did. Maybe I should ask them. I worry about my 20-year-old. So I've got a 21 and a newly minted 18-year-old 2 days ago.
Oh,
and
lovely.
They are lovely. They are lovely. I love their energy and their company. They're wonderful company. But I do sometimes think, gosh, how are you going to live?
Yeah, well, there was an article in the paper where this dad worked out through AI which of the jobs were going to, for his daughter, who is choosing subjects for the HSC, which jobs would be still available in 20 years, which jobs had the most longevity that weren't going to be impacted by AI.
Is it plumbing?
Probably plumbing. And also government policy makers, because anything that requires a relationship with another person. So my younger daughter, who's speech pathology, that's apparently pretty safe. I haven't read the article. We were just talking about it this morning and she sent me a copy. But if you want to drill down and if you really want to plan the future and go, well, do I have, am I going to throw all this energy? I mean, it seems crazy that we have to speak like this, because once you just sort of choose what you were interested in and what you were good at.
Yeah.
Oh, God, I'm good at this. That's how my career evolved. I was just better at doing some things than others. And I was better at performing than I was at teaching. And I was better at making jokes than I was at being serious. And I was better at writing than probably I was performing. But then I fell into comedy because you do both.
Yeah.
So, it's just in the end, for me, I mean, I was still living in a communal house when I was 35. So when kids get really worried about their careers and start going, I've got to have goals, and I'm thinking, I wouldn't know what a goal was. I would never have imagined if I had a goal. Here's the dog.
I told you he would come in with great...
That is a beautiful dog. Look at the colour of you.
I had actually asked my daughter to intercept that, so she's done a great job. She's done a great job, Audrey, of intercepting. It's okay.
I love you. What's your name?
His name's Horace.
Horace.
So
lovely. That's a very traditional. What is that sort of name? It sounds literary or something.
So Horace was named after... So my daughter's Audrey. Here she comes. So Audrey was named after my grandmother, Audrey, and Audrey's...
Hi, Audrey.
Hi, I didn't hear you come in.
No, I know. I was
you?
just saying you did a great job of intercepting
We
that.
don't mind. We love dogs. I've got a dog, Pablo. Well, it's not really mine. He's my daughter's dog, but she's taken him with her when she moved out. But we love dogs. I spent all morning with the dog, so he probably wants to smell me, actually.
You probably smell divine.
Yeah, I smell like a, what was the dog I was in, like cavoodle or something like that.
Amazing.
Yeah. But he just had a bath apparently, so I shouldn't smell too much.
I'm sure to us, he's a truffle dog, this one, so I think he smells things that...
Oh, is he?
Yeah, he's an Italian truffle dog, and he is... So Audrey was named after Grandma Audrey, and then Audrey's husband's name was Horace.
Oh, that's your grandfather.
That's my grandfather. And when I had a son, I really, really wanted to call him Horace, and everybody told me that he would have no friends. So I didn't. I bowed to the political pressure of not calling him Horace, and he ended up with Willoughby. And then we got this little dog. I thought, oh, it's perfect.
Oh, you've got to be really careful with names.
I thought it was pretty safe with Horace.
No, he'd get horror. Wouldn't he? Didn't everyone say that? He'd get horror. Horry's not bad. Horry's good, but he might get horror if he was, they were mean boys.
That's true.
Mean kids.
I didn't think it through. I went to a lovely all-girls school.
Oh, yeah. All my friends who went to girls' schools just had such a different experience.
Oh, girls can be mean, that's for sure. But anyway, so that's where
not in the end.
Horace came
They all
from.
work out in the end,
Yes.
don't they, as they get older?
I think so.
Yeah.
Well, anyway, now you've met Horace, and that's just completely, I don't know.
That was random but lovely. He's a beautiful, for those of you who are listening, he's a beautiful, fluffy, big fluffy dog. He's a lovely dog. He looks like he's a designer dog, but he's a purebred truffle hunter.
Thoroughbred, he is.
What's he called? What sort of breed?
He's a Lagotto Romagnolo.
A Lagotto Romagnolo. I will look it up.
Barack Obama. So they're not meant to be quite that big when you look them up. They're meant to be a little bit slimmer and a little bit shorter. And he, so Barack Obama had a Portuguese water dog, and he's an Italian water dog.
Oh. Why are they water dogs? They like the water? Because truffles aren't water.
That's true. No, truffles aren't in the water. I don't know the answer to that. I mean, any puddle, when we go for a walk, any puddle, he has to be in it, regardless of the size. He loves swimming. But I don't know if there's been actually an Italian movie made about truffle dogs. And yes, anyway.
Amazing.
Yeah, if only he could.
If only you had a truffier.
That's it.
A truffier just out the back here.
I could be.
With all your Angophorus.
That's right.
Yeah.
I just
Then he could give him something to do.
It would, and it would probably be very good for him, for his brain.
Yeah, take him down to Tasmania. That's where the truffles come from, don't they?
Oh, do they?
Yeah, and what's that place, that lovely place up north? Not Muswellbrook, is it? Or, oh, well, there's more truffles up there. Because I once met someone who lived there. Starts with M, Muswellbrook. Anyway, there was a quarry nearby that quarried lime, and it had like an overhead cable car with buckets full of lime that would go from the quarry to where it got to, the machines, and it would pass over this man's farm where he had truffles, and the lime would just blow off and sprinkle all over his truffles, which is exactly what truffles need, apparently.
Wow.
So anyone listening who's got agricultural experience will probably say I'm completely wrong.
No.
That's the way I heard the story.
That sounds lucky for him.
Mudgy. We knew that.
We
right?
did know that.
Mudgy.
That's our menopause brains not being able to find that word.
Yeah, but do you think that's true, fog brain? No, I don't. Oh, yeah, maybe.
I think it's true for some people. I don't think it's true.
I think it's sleeplessness because you wake up and you're hot and and you're constantly having people with night sweats having to change 3 or 4 times a night. That's why I know you'll be spreading the word how important if you've got severe symptoms that HRT is and how safe it is now.
Well,
and actually, bones and brain and colon and heart.
Yeah.
Like you'll be up on the latest.
So certainly I've been having this conversation with my girlfriends because we're all the same age, and I didn't think I had any symptoms, but I went for a DEXA scan and I was osteopenic in my spine, which really pisses me off because I do lots of exercise. Anyway, whatever.
Right.
So my wonderful GP said, well, you need to start on estrogen, and because you have a uterus, you need to start on progesterone.
Yeah.
And I've been having this conversation with my girlfriends because I started on the hormones, and then a couple of months later I just went, I feel better. I didn't know I didn't feel okay because I guess it's you get used to the new status quo. I feel so much better. But I was sitting at this table and we were having dinner. So you've met Audrey. Willoughby was on the other side. And they love nothing more than to tell me, they're very verbal about when I'm wrong or if I've got, if I'm not doing something. Anyway, we're sitting here and I said...
Not good, but I mean,
good. No, good.
A bit of batch cat, discussion, right, is good.
I think it's...
Not fear.
No, definitely they're not fearful. But I was sitting here and I said... But I'm so lucky because I had absolutely no symptoms. I didn't have any mood swings and I didn't have any, and I caught a glance between them that I clearly wasn't meant to catch. And I think it was Audrey who said, "Is that what you think?
Really believe, Mum?
And
no
I went,
symptoms?
What do you mean? I've been totally mood stable." And my son went, "Oh, so do you remember that time I didn't instantly wash that pan and you went and you put it on my pillow and it had all the fat and everything?" Just wondering if now looking back you think that might have been an overreaction. And then, of course, I was like, no, hang on a second. That's not an overreaction.
I'd do that again.
I would do that again.
I would do that again pre-menopause.
Exactly. And
pre-perimenopause.
That's right. Also, you should be... Anyway, but so I don't know.
Yeah, it's true. I've talk to families with exactly that reaction where the mother has gone, I didn't have any symptoms, and you just see this sort of freeze on the face of the family. They're trying to hold a smile and not give anything away, but they're just thinking, what? Yeah. Well, you don't really know. It's just incremental, and you think, and as I said, a lot of it I think is sleep deprivation, but your hormones, we don't understand. Well, we didn't understand that your hormones affect every single part of your body.
That's right.
Whether it's your skin or your moods or your eyes or the way you're thinking or your emotional reaction to things, and not that I think that menopause, we're at our prime. I think we make really, and there's a lot of research that says menopausal women in the workforce are more focused,
of course,
and have a clearer idea of where they want to go because their kids are older and they're not worried about all that. All the things we were talking about earlier have passed, all that managing young children and all that. We're often at a really good part of our career when we're looking ahead. We've got experience, we've got knowledge, we want to apply it. We're loyal, we're committed to our jobs and we want our jobs to work. So we're really great employees. Or or leaders, and I'm not saying employees as in worker bees. I'm just in any role, whether you're in a cafe or you're an executive in a big bank. That's we're at our peak, but it's really hard to maintain that if you're not sleeping, or you're getting a hot flush and you have to hide it at work because you think you're going to be judged. The boss yelled at me for burning down the warehouse. She must be on the rags, which is what we used to get when we were younger. Or she must be menopausal. No. You're just an idiot and you're incompetent and she yelled at you, but you don't want to put yourself out there to be criticised because of something you might be going through biologically. And that was another thing about the feminist movement in my day, in the 70s and 60s, 70s and 80s, was that we wanted to be equal, so we denied our biology. So we would never really, we didn't need anything special because we were equal to the guys and we could, do everything a guy could do. But actually, things change for us. We get pregnant.
Yes.
And we get menopause and these are parts of our lives that we have to manage and we have to understand. And if for the third of women who have severe symptoms, we need some medication for it. And I've got a friend she's probably 79, a different friend to the grey hair friend we were probably talking about before we even recorded, but however... and she's been on HRT for like 30 years because she likes what it does to her mojo.
Yeah.
She said it gives me a sex drive.
Yes.
And she said, I live on my own, so I'm driving nowhere, but I love the feeling it gives me. And she said, I like having a libido. And she said, my libido I don't have a libido for a man. I have it for myself.
For myself.
And she said no amount of like adult pottery classes can give it the same thing. So knowing that we can get treatment for things that we may be missing or maybe affecting us and how we relate to each other and ourselves, it's really important to know your choices and be informed about it. So.
It is. I mean, so I found this blew my tiny mind, but it's your hormone levels post-menopause are akin to being castrated.
Right.
They're so low. They're so low as to be negligible. And I found that incredible that with that happening and the neurotransmitters, so they're not just, as you say, working in your ovaries and your uterus, but they're working throughout your entire body. How could we possibly think that 50% of the population, because every female is going to go through it if you live long enough, you're going to go through menopause. So 50% of the population it's going to happen to, they're going to be almost castrated in terms of levels of hormones. Just carry on. Nothing's changed.
That's right.
Just carry right on. So, and the other thing I didn't understand was we seem completely okay with teenagers going through puberty. That's fine. So we can make allowances for that, but not seem to understand that.
Yeah, we put our kids on the pill if they, they're getting grumpy or they want their skin to clear up or contraceptive or whatever the reason is. We happily give them hormones.
Yeah.
Happily. No one questions it.
No.
Nobody questions it.
We're not.
But if it's like Viagra. Viagra took 6 weeks to be approved by the. Oh, you would know this more than me.
Yes. Oh no. I mean, you've just opened. You've got me started now because we were talking about hormones, and there's of course testosterone, and women have more testosterone than we do estrogen. Estrogen is aromatase from testosterone, so we have cholesterol. There's a cascade. There's testosterone, and then it gets aromatase to estrogen.
What does aromatase mean?
Oh, that's the enzyme that changes it's cleaving off a carbon. Yes, it's the enzyme that changes the testosterone molecule into estrogen molecule.
Oh, right.
Yeah.
Right.
So if you have breast cancer, you may have heard of aromatase inhibitors, which stops that part of the cascade happening. So,
All right, that's...
yes, what was I telling you? Yes, so, but to get testosterone replacement for a woman, you have to have hypoactive sexual desire disorder, which is distressingly low libido for a period of over 6 months. To get a PDE5 inhibitor, which is sildenafil or tadalafil, so Viagra or Cialis. So 50% of men over 50 have erectile dysfunction, 60% over 60, 70% over 70. You know, so you get the point. 100% of women after their menopause date will have
erectile dysfunction.
will have erectile dysfunction. Will have, you know, castration, low levels of hormones.
Right.
But to get Viagra, you go and say, I, you know, can't maintain an erection.
Here's
Viagra. But not to get testosterone. To get testosterone, you have to prove you've been distressed for over 6 months, and then you have to jump through all of these hoops. And I guess I was laughing with a friend of mine who's a GP, and she's like, it's just got all these lonely erections walking around, because the men can solve that problem like easily, but for the women, it's
lonely erections. It's just, well, it's like, I didn't understand that you lost so much of your libido, that it was quite so cut and dried. I thought it maybe varied, because often I think libido is psychological too. You know, like you can turn yourself on.
Oh, yeah. Well, so certainly for a woman, it's a lot more psychological than it is for a guy. Absolutely, yeah.
But, you know, I knew about the fact that Viagra got passed by the TGA. Is it the TGA in Australia?
Yes,
yeah,
the TGA.
In about 6 weeks. And they had a testosterone spray for women, a spray to improve their libido. And 2 years later, it still wasn't passed. And in fact, they passed it in America with their drugs, what's it called in America?
FDA.
The FDA in America, before they even passed. And it was an Australian invention. So, you know, women aren't supposed to have a libido. I think the old days, the scientists thought it might, you know, break free and take over the world. I don't know. We weren't supposed to be turned on by things.
But now are we wondering why so many marriages break down in midlife and guys are running off with younger girls?
Well, it's hard to talk about those sort of things. It's all about, well, men think when women turn their back on them or say they don't want sex because they're going through menopause and they don't understand what's happening to their bodies or their sex drive, the men think the women don't like them anymore. I interviewed men for my book, and they just felt that their wives, you know, and other blokes would go, oh, mate, get out of that, she's menopausal, mate, just leave. You know, because that's how they were talking to each other. And women are going, I just, you know, I really don't feel like it, and it's painful, and I'm not getting any pleasure, and I'm feeling distressed. So they, you know, but they couldn't talk about it. So that's been a really, you know, that's still a big thing. And then if a woman just loses a libido and doesn't you know, doesn't miss sex, well, then what do you say to your partner? Go and find sex somewhere, but come back home and we'll watch telly together. We'll watch Antique Roadshow. But, you know, like, how do you negotiate a change of that intimacy? You just have to hope that your husband gets erectile dysfunction while you're going through menopause, you know, and then everyone's happy. No one's under pressure.
But it's actually really, really challenging. I've got a friend who's a sex therapist, and we've talked about it a little bit as well, because it's not talked about. So even within my girlfriends, we don't talk about that. So I was very fortunate that my GP is the greatest GP in the whole world, and she...
Name, please.
Yes, I know. Well, I feel like I can't tell people because I just want to make sure she's available to me at all times. But she's, yes, Dr. Sarah Farrell from Sydney Women's Wellness, and she's the best GP of all time. And she said to me, we're going to start you on estrogen and progesterone because of your spine. And then she just took that conversation further, and I ended up on testosterone. And so there's a TGA approved product called Androfem in Australia, which is a cream, which is because it's homeopathic levels of testosterone we're talking about. We're not talking about, I mean, you see me, I'm basically a bodybuilder, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's not anabolic.
You're fizzing and popping on those steroids. Look at
my biceps, they're ginormous. we're not talking about anabolic steroids that were being abused in the 90s in sport. You know, we're not talking about that kind of level. We're talking about replacing physiological levels of testosterone in women, which is a tenth what the men have. And it's, I would say, been a game changer as part of a whole suite of other things that we also did an upgrade on the body at that time, you know, in terms of estrogen and progesterone. But as part of the whole group, it was amazing. But I don't think that conversation's being had terribly frequently in GP land across the country, because also how much of that are you going to get through in a 15-minute Medicare rebated conversation?
And also GPs aren't taught about menopause.
And also GPs are barely taught
about women's health. Yeah, you have to get ones that have a particular interest. You really need a woman who's going through menopause herself as a GP to actually get the right treatment and understanding and empathy. Yeah. But I mean, now we're spending 30% of our lives in menopause, whereas, and my mum did too. My mum, when she went through menopause, so when I went through menopause, I go, why didn't Mum tell me? You know, she was really open about everything, but she never talked about menopause. So I rang her up and she said, oh, menopause. It was the worst 5 years of my life. And first of all, I thought, 5 years? And then I thought, worst 5 years. This is a woman who went through, you know, the Great Depression and World War II, and menopause was worse. Like, what? I said, why didn't you talk about it? And she said, well, we just never talked about it. And I said, you worked for doctors when you were going through menopause. Why didn't you say to them how you were suffering? And she said, well, they were all men, and they would have just said it was women's problems. And then my dad, who I thought was watching a Clint Eastwood movie, he said, women's problems are men's problems.
He's very smart.
And then he rode off into the sunset.
Yes.
No, but yeah, it's true. You know, this is a joint thing. We've got relationships, you know, now we're doing joint parenting and we're doing joint housework, and this is how it should be. But we really need to talk about the different thing, menopause too. When my book came out, so many men bought my book.
Oh, brilliant.
Yeah, their wives wouldn't buy it. A lot of them emailed me and said, look, my wife doesn't want to buy it because she doesn't want to admit it, but I need to know what's going on.
How good is that?
Yeah. One guy who was a farmer, he was ploughing the paddocks out near Galagan or something. He just put his tractor on automatic and read the whole book while the tractor was
fabulous.
I know, fabulous.
Yeah.
Because I think the men in our lives want to know. They want to know what's going on and how they can, support us.
Well, absolutely. And, I mean, my husband's a doctor, but he's a medical oncologist, so he's not in women's health. But I've been educating him on this. I mean, he had no education on it at university, and then specialised, and then has never thought about reproductive, unless they're cancerous, again.
Well, see, that's the other thing. If we women start going, I'm not going to talk about menopause, or I feel embarrassed, or it's aging, or I'm past my use-by date, what sort of message does that give all the young women who go through menopause, medical menopause, because they've had a gynecological cancer and they've had their ovaries or everything removed, and they go through menopause and no one tells them they're going to go through menopause? Not no one, but a lot of young women I talk to with gynecological cancer they were just always focused on the cancer and not the fact that, okay, now you're going to go through menopause. And if we older women are saying, oh, it's the end of,
yes.
Like, it's really horrible message.
It is.
It's actually a very liberating time, and it can be managed. And we can wear white again. You know, we can go swimming without fear of attracting sharks. You know, like, we can go out without sanitary products unless you've got a bit of, incontinence, but you can get that fixed too.
Yes, you can. No.
So the message really has to be that it's natural and normal and a really great part of life. And if you're younger, then you have to be fully supported and be given the choice of how to manage it. And speaking of sex, and a young woman was telling me, so she lost she had cervical cancer, and then sex was really painful, but she's trying to educate other young women how to get their sex drive back, and she goes into sex shops, which are really, really great apparently, but she said you have to know which sex toys to get, because if your skin is fragile, if you haven't got estrogen nourishing your vagina and your labia and everything like that, your genitals, and you use the wrong sex toy, it can be really painful, or on your clitoris and things. So there's so much information we need to just sort of, that needs to be accessible, and your friend who's a sex therapist would know all that.
Yes, she's a wealth of...
Yeah, I bet.
She's a wealth of knowledge. Jean Kittson, thank you so much for joining me. You've spent decades helping us laugh about I don't even think I can read it sounds so scripted. You've spent decades helping us laugh about the parts of life that many of us struggle through, midlife, menopause, and the absurd expectations placed on women, and the very real experience of caring for aging parents. We didn't even get to talk about that.
We didn't even get to talk about aging
Next
parents.
time. Thank you for bringing your honesty. I think we will have to edit it all out because I now sound like I'm reading something. I was going to say, you're still hot to me.
Oh, thank you.
You're welcome. That was a little in joke there. Jean Kittson, you're divine.
Oh,
you're
thanks,
exactly
Kate.
as divine as I thought you would be.
Thank you. Oh, thanks, Kate. It was great to speak with you, and I really enjoyed our conversation. Thanks for spreading the word and helping other women and men understand all this.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Now we have to eat a whole plate of cheese.
I'm going to. I'll have a grape right now.
ASMR. That's ASMR.